am a true son of Texas. The real deal, to be immodest. I came into this world in Texas. I've lived my entire life in Texas. And when my time comes, you may bury me in crimson Lone Star sand and leave me to rest in heavenly peace beneath the silent clods of the Concho River Valley. But my second love, my preferred home away from home, is New Mexico. If you are familiar with Tim Kreit's adventures, maybe you've seen some of my sojourns on motorcycle into the New Mexico high country. You've perhaps seen me meander across white sands and explore part of the Missile Range. Well, this year my wife and I wanted to see a corner of the state we'd never visited before. Far western New Mexico near the Arizona line and up into the vast Gila National Forest. We found some fascinating places out there, some of which we'd never heard of before, places perhaps you've never heard of either. The following documents some of what we discovered. Enjoy. City of Rock State Park is located in a lonely spot on the desert north of Deming and consists of large erosion-sculptured volcanic rock formations in the shape of pinnacles and boulders. They rise as high as 40 feet off the desert floor. The formations are fascinating. Our plan for this trip was to wander around aimlessly, looking for nothing in particular, so we found this place pretty much by accident. We also resolved that we would hike as many trailheads as we could, and City of Rocks looked to have some good ones. Unfortunately, we stumbled across the park during the heat of the day, during what the locals kept referring to as an unusual heat wave. It was already near the century mark, so we stayed pretty close to the truck and parked it as close to the formations as we safely could. Despite the heat, we found our first hidden gem of the journey. It reminded me of a quote from Tolkien. "There are no safe paths in this part of the world. You are over the edge of the wild now, and in for all sorts of fun wherever you go." Our base of operations for a few days was Silver City, an historic mining boomtown 45 miles from the Arizona border. I had mentally prepared myself for it to be this sleepy small town in the least populated part of the state, but that's not exactly what it was. Silver City is a pretty bustling spot. This surprised me because before we left, everyone kept telling me, "Man, that's the most empty part of the state. Nobody's out there." Considering that the entire population of New Mexico is less than the population of Houston, Texas, I wasn't expecting such a beehive of activity. But it's a really cool town, kind of a low-rent Santa Fe, as my wife put it, and that's fine by me. We found inexpensive lodging, awesome food at every turn, and some fantastic local beers from a place called Toad Creek Brewing in the historic downtown district. This former professional brewmaster highly recommends the Pendejo Porter and the Rye IPA. Silver City is also a very pet-friendly town, and people take their dogs with them everywhere, which adds to the town's inviting ambiance. The attractions are a bit oddball, but still intriguing. We stumbled upon this movie set mock-up of Billy the Kid's cabin, which was donated to the town by actor-director Ron Howard after he used it in one of his movies filmed nearby. It sits in the parking lot of the visitor center. We went to the local historical museum while we were there and learned quite a bit about Silver City's past. Copper, gold, and silver mining made the town, and copper is still a driving economic force in the area today, apparently. It also showcased some of the local art, which I always enjoy seeing. You can always tell a lot about a region by its music and its art. While we were at the historical museum, the staff kept telling us, "You gotta go see the Big Ditch. Don't miss it. It's incredible." Okay? So we went, and I have never been more underwhelmed by a recommendation in my life. The Big Ditch started out as Main Street 150 years ago in Silver City, but due to poor civil engineering and planning, was soon turned into a ravine by repeated floodwaters. Eventually it was made into a water catchment, and the rest is sort of history. It looked to me like a haven for homeless people and drug users. In the end, the story of the Big Ditch is much more compelling than the ditch itself. You might want to give this part of Silver City a miss. Otherwise, Silver City is a great place. We would definitely go back for another visit. Wandering reestablishes the original harmony which once existed between man and the universe. Just along the Continental Divide and into the Gila National Forest lies the Continental Divide Trail. It's 3,028 miles long and extends from Chihuahua to Alberta, so we obviously didn't hike all of it. In fact, it would take a disciplined hiker about 6 months to complete the entire trail. Instead, we settled for a few miles of it in the area of the Arastra Interpretive Site. According to the U.S. Forest Service, the Arastra was a primitive mill used in old-time mining operations. It was mule-powered and used the action of grindstones to process the rock extracted from gold mining. This part of the Continental Divide Trail is pretty spectacular. All you hear is the wind in the trees, and you can smell the aroma of pine and juniper and other flora for miles around. The trail is a bit brushy and loose on parts of this section, but if you have proper hiking gear and a little experience, you'll do just fine. Bring plenty of water and some calories depending on how far you decide to go. Despite the 7,500 feet of elevation, summer days are still hot, and accelerated dehydration above 6,000 feet is always a concern. The best thing about taking side roads and back roads is that you find places like this. Pinos Altos lies at the southern end of the Gila National Forest. It was a mining town formed in 1860 following the discovery of gold in the nearby Pinos Altos Mountains. These days, it's not quite a ghost town. In fact, it has its own little museum and gift shop. Most of the stuff out front is for sale. It all looked to be craft work from Mexico, and I pretty quickly found something I had to have. Unfortunately, the place looked closed, but just as we were about to give up and wander off, a nice lady in an ATV pulled up and offered to open the place up for us. I was able to buy the sun plaque I wanted, and then took a look through the 3-room museum next door that was originally the first school building in the town. It had all the stuff you'd expect from one of these semi-ghost town museums, but 2 things in particular caught my eye. One was this piece of art that captured so much Old West truth in one picture that I just had to chuckle. Funnier still, it was hanging directly above an old clavier-type piano that featured Bible hymns. The duality was perfect. The other thing that caught my eye was this photo of a man who had killed a massive puma. This had to have set some kind of record. It looked to have been taken maybe 20 or 30 years ago, but it was certainly telling of the dangers of the wild out here. We have big cats in certain parts of Texas, but I've never seen a mountain lion quite this big. As beautiful as they are apex predators and a serious danger to people and livestock. Proper management of the species benefits both them and us. Along the main street, there's a row of buildings that are all historic. I won't go into too much detail here, but there's an old saloon, an old opera house, and an old general store with a few others. The bar in particular looks to be well maintained and used from time to time, or perhaps for special events, things like that. I always enjoy seeing places like this preserved and utilized. Just down the street at the corner, there was what at first appeared to be an old fort of some kind. But the more I investigated, the more I felt pretty sure it was not a real fortification. I looked online for more info, but I couldn't find any that I considered reliable. I could be completely wrong about this, but the place looked more like a movie set or some kind of tourist attraction. Still, it got my attention and it was fun to explore. After 4 or 5 days in far west New Mexico, it was time to start heading back toward Texas. And I was not going back across the state without visiting the world-famous town of Hatch, which is known globally for its red and green chili peppers. My goal was to buy a potato sack full of them and bring it back to Texas to share with my friends, and that's exactly what I did. The entire town, just as I imagined, is an ode to the chili pepper. There's a restaurant that specializes in chili pepper burgers, and the whole place just has this wonderful Route 66 vibe that I can't seem to get enough of. If you are ever traveling across New Mexico, stopping in Hatch should be considered obligatory. There's a bench. That means a vantage point. That's a pretty good vantage point. Our final day on the road before heading home was spent in one of our favorite towns, Cloudcroft Village. Again, if you're familiar with Tim Kreit's adventures, you know that we've spent a lot of time here over the years and hiked most of the trailheads in the area. One of them, however, we've always given a miss due to its busyness, and we wanted to finally give it a go on the way back. Osha Trailhead is a 2.5-mile loop on one of the peaks closest to town. It's listed as an improved trail, though it is pretty rocky in places with plenty of loose stuff. That said, you don't really need anything but a light pack, some sunscreen, and good hiking footwear for this short trail. Just watch your step. There are some attention-getting drop-offs and some opportunities to slip. Overall, though, it's a really scenic trailhead, and from the pinnacle, you can see white sands in the distance over 20 miles away and thousands of feet below. We took it easy at Dusty Boots that night and then headed home the next day. There were a few other things we wanted to see on this trip, but were unable to because of time constraints and other obstacles. The Gila cave dwellings were on our list, but could not be accessed due to the closure of the road leading to them. We had also planned to see the Catwalk Recreation Area near Silver City, but it just didn't happen time-wise. And as I said at the beginning, we were mainly just exploring and wandering and didn't want the pressure of trying to cram too many destinations into the journey. I wish we'd had another week, but I'm still a working stiff and a busy performing musician, and duty called. Lastly, I really wanted to see the very large array west of Socorro, which I have been fascinated with for decades, but again, we simply ran out of time. That's okay though. We resolved to head back soon for more fun and to see the things we missed, and that's exactly what we'll do. See you on the next episode, and thanks for watching.